Marcus Johnson was tired but happy as he walked across the college campus. At 32 years old, he was much older than most students, but that didn't bother him. After serving 3 tours in Afghanistan as a Marine, he was finally chasing his dream of becoming an engineer. The morning sun felt good on his face. Marcus smiled as he checked his schedule. His first 2 classes had gone well. Now he had English literature with Professor Karen Miller. He heard other students saying she was tough, but Marcus liked challenges. As he walked to class, his left leg hurt a bit. During his last tour in Afghanistan, a bomb had gone off near him. The doctors fixed his leg, but it still gave him trouble sometimes. Marcus didn't mind. He was alive, and that's what counted. He checked his watch. The meeting with his disability counselor had run long. He was going to be 5 minutes late to class. Marcus walked faster, ignoring the pain in his leg. When Marcus reached the classroom door, he took a deep breath. He hated being late, but sometimes these things happened. He opened the door quietly and stepped inside. Professor Miller stopped talking mid-sentence. She was a thin woman with glasses and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked at Marcus with cold eyes. The whole class turned to stare at him. "Well, look who decided to join us," Professor Miller said in a sharp voice. "I thought military people understood the importance of being on time." Marcus felt his face get hot. He was embarrassed, but kept his cool. "I'm sorry for being late, Professor. I had a meeting with the disability office that ran long." Professor Miller raised an eyebrow. "Disability? You look fine to me." Her eyes moved down to his leg, then back to his face. "Take a seat, Mr. Johnson." "Marcus Johnson," he said politely. "Well, Mr. Johnson, try to be on time in the future. Some of us take education seriously." Marcus nodded and found the only empty seat in the front row. He could feel everyone watching him. As he sat down, he noticed a few students giving him sympathetic looks. Throughout the class, Marcus tried to participate. He had read all the assigned materials and had good thoughts to share, but every time he raised his hand, Professor Miller would call on someone else. After the 5th time this happened, Marcus knew it wasn't an accident. The class was discussing a famous poem. Marcus raised his hand again. Professor Miller sighed loudly. "Yes, Mr. Johnson. I suppose the military has interesting views on poetry." Marcus ignored her tone. "The poet is using water as a symbol for time," he said. "How it can't be stopped, just like we can't stop getting older." Professor Miller's mouth formed a tight line. "That's a very simple interpretation. Perhaps stick to the basics for now." A girl named Aisha sitting next to Marcus whispered, "That was a good point. I didn't even catch that." When class ended, Marcus gathered his books slowly. His leg was stiff from sitting. As students filed out, Professor Miller called to him. "Mr. Johnson, a word please." Marcus approached her desk. "Yes, Professor." "This is a college-level literature course," she said, looking down at him even though he was much taller. "It requires deep thinking and understanding. Not everyone is cut out for it. The military might have paid for your education, but that doesn't mean you belong here." Marcus blinked, surprised by her direct rudeness. "I've read all the books on our list, Professor, some of them twice." "Reading and understanding are different things," she said with a small smile. "Your first paper is due next week. We'll see if you can handle it." As Marcus left the classroom, he felt both angry and determined. This wasn't his first battle, and he wasn't about to back down. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus worked harder than ever on his first literature paper. He chose to write about how war was shown in the books they were reading. This was something he knew about from real life. Every night after his other classes, Marcus would go to the library. He would sit for hours reading books and taking notes. His leg would get stiff, but he didn't mind. He wanted his paper to be perfect. When Marcus wasn't in the library, he was at the Veterans Center on campus. There, he met other former soldiers who were now students. One of them was James, who had been in college for 2 years. "How are your classes going?" James asked one day as they drank coffee. Most are good, Marcus said. But there's this one Professor Miller. She seems to have a problem with me being there. James frowned. Professor Miller, the literature teacher with the tight bun. I had her last year. She's tough on everyone, but he stopped talking for a moment. She was especially hard on me too. And another black veteran I know. So it's not just me, Marcus said quietly. Probably not, James said. But be careful. She has friends in the school. Students have complained before, but nothing changed. Marcus nodded. This was important information. The next day, Marcus turned in his paper. He had worked on it for many hours and was proud of it. Professor Miller barely looked at him when he put it on her desk. 3 days later, she returned the papers to the class. Most of you did acceptable work, Professor Miller said. Some did excellent work. And a few of you, her eyes found Marcus, a few of you might want to consider if college is the right place for you. When Marcus got his paper back, it was covered in red marks. At the top was a big D-. Marcus stared at it in shock. He had never gotten such a bad grade before. During class, Marcus stayed quiet. He read through all the comments on his paper. Most of them didn't make sense. Professor Miller had written things like unclear thinking and poor understanding, but didn't explain what she meant. After class, Marcus went to Professor Miller's desk. Excuse me, Professor, could you explain why I got this grade? I want to do better next time. Professor Miller looked up with cold eyes. Mr. Johnson, your paper shows that you lack basic writing skills. You might have been good at following orders in the military, but college requires thinking skills. I did think, Marcus said calmly. I connected the war scenes in these books to real experiences. I used examples from the text. Your examples were simplistic, she said, and your grammar was poor. I'm surprised you graduated high school with writing like this. A few students were still in the room, packing up their bags. They looked uncomfortable hearing the professor talk this way. May I see an example of a good paper? Marcus asked, so I can learn what to do better. Professor Miller smiled thinly. Aisha's paper was excellent. Perhaps she can show you hers, though I doubt you'll understand what makes it superior to yours. As Marcus left the classroom, Aisha caught up with him in the hallway. That wasn't right, she said. What she said to you? It's okay, Marcus said, though he felt angry inside. No, it's not, Aisha said. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Look, I got an A on my paper, but I read over your shoulder sometimes in class when you were working on yours. Your paper looked really good to me. Marcus stopped walking. Really? Yes. And Aisha lowered her voice. This isn't the first time. Last semester, there was another black student, a woman. Professor Miller was really hard on her too. She ended up dropping the class. Marcus thought for a moment. Would you mind if I looked at your paper, just to compare? Not at all, Aisha said. She pulled it from her folder. Here. Marcus quickly read through Aisha's paper. It was good, but his was just as good, maybe even better in some parts. Thank you, he said, handing it back. This is helpful. As Marcus walked to his next class, his mind was working hard. He wasn't going to drop this class. He wasn't going to let Professor Miller win. He needed a plan. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Professor Miller and how she treated him. In Afghanistan, Marcus had faced enemies who wanted to kill him, but somehow this teacher made him feel worse than those enemies did. The next morning, Marcus went to the veterans' office early. He wanted to talk to the counselor there, a man named Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson had helped many veterans adjust to college life. Come in, Marcus, Mr. Thompson said with a smile. How are your classes going? Marcus sat down heavily in the chair. Most are fine, but I'm having a problem with my literature class. Marcus told Mr. Thompson everything. How Professor Miller made comments about his military service, how she ignored him in class, how she gave him a bad grade on a paper that was actually good. Mr. Thompson's face got more serious as he listened. When Marcus finished, Mr. Thompson sighed. "You're not the first veteran to have problems with Professor Miller," he said, "but proving she's treating you unfairly because you're black and a veteran is hard." "What should I do?" Marcus asked. "Document everything," Mr. Thompson said. "Write down every comment she makes with dates and times. Keep all your graded work. And if possible, get other students to back you up." Marcus nodded. "I can do that." "Also," Mr. Thompson added, "you should know your rights. The college has rules against treating students unfairly. I'll email you the policy." Marcus left feeling better. He had a plan now. In the military, having a plan made everything easier. Later that day, Marcus had Professor Miller's class again. He sat in his usual seat in the front. He noticed that she seemed in a bad mood. "Today we will discuss how authors use symbols in literature," Professor Miller said. "Can anyone tell me what a symbol is?" Several hands went up, including Marcus's. As usual, Professor Miller called on everyone but him. After about 15 minutes, Marcus lowered his hand. What was the point? She would never call on him. Then Professor Miller looked right at him. "Mr. Johnson," she said with a small smile, "you've been quiet today. Perhaps you can tell us what the author means when he describes the river in Chapter 7. Marcus had read the chapter carefully. He knew the answer. "The river represents freedom," he said. "The main character sees it as a way to escape his problems." Professor Miller's smile disappeared. She had expected him to get it wrong. "That's correct," she said, sounding surprised. "Though I'm sure you didn't understand the deeper meanings." Marcus wrote down her comment in his notebook, including the date and time. He was starting to keep track, just like Mr. Thompson suggested. After class, Marcus went to the library. He found Aisha sitting at a table, studying. "Can I join you?" he asked. "Sure," she said, moving her books to make room. Marcus sat down. "Aisha, can I ask you something? Do you think Professor Miller treats me differently than other students?" Aisha looked uncomfortable. "Yes," she finally said. "It's pretty obvious. She's harder on you than anyone else. Would you be willing to write that down for me? I might need it later." Aisha thought for a moment. "If you file a complaint, she might give me a bad grade too." "I understand if you don't want to," Marcus said. "No, I'll do it," Aisha said firmly. "What she's doing is wrong. My mom always says to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." "Thank you," Marcus said. "That means a lot." As they studied together, more students from their class joined their table. Marcus was careful and friendly with everyone. He didn't mention Professor Miller again, but he noticed how the other students were warming up to him. On his way home that evening, Marcus saw Professor Miller walking to her car. She saw him too and quickly looked away. For the first time, Marcus felt like he might have a chance against her. He wasn't just a lone soldier anymore. He was building a team. The next week, Professor Miller announced a big test. "This will count for 30% of your grade," she said. "Those who aren't serious students will fail." She looked directly at Marcus when she said this. He wrote down her words and the time in his notebook. His list of her comments was getting long. Marcus studied hard for the test. He formed a study group with Aisha and 3 other students from class. They met in the library every evening. "I don't get why she's so mean to you," said Tyler, one of the students in the group. "You know more about these books than I do." "It's not fair," said another student named Lisa. "I've seen your work. You're a good student." Marcus smiled. "Thanks. I'm just trying to pass her class." On the day of the test, Marcus felt ready. The test had 3 essay questions about the books they had read. Marcus wrote careful, thoughtful answers. He used examples from the books, just like Professor Miller had taught them. When he finished, Marcus felt good about his work. But 1 week later, when Professor Miller returned the tests, Marcus got a C-. "This can't be right," he thought. He looked at his test. There were few comments, just a note saying shallow analysis at the top. After class, Marcus asked to speak with Professor Miller. "I don't understand this grade," he said politely. "Could you explain where I went wrong?" Professor Miller sighed loudly, like she was very tired. "Mr. Johnson, your answers show a basic understanding of the material, but nothing more. Your writing lacks depth. Could you show me what you mean?" Marcus asked. "I want to improve." "Look," she said, her voice getting sharper. "Not everyone is meant for college. The military has many fine qualities, but it doesn't prepare you for deep thinking. Perhaps you should consider a trade school instead." Marcus felt his face get hot. He had faced danger in war, but this woman made him angry in a different way. Still, he kept his voice calm. "I have the right to understand my grade," he said, "and I have given you my explanation." Professor Miller snapped. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a faculty meeting." She walked out, leaving Marcus standing alone in the classroom. Later, at the Veterans Center, Marcus showed Mr. Thompson his test. "This answer is excellent," Mr. Thompson said, reading Marcus's work. "You clearly understood the book and the question." "But she gave me a C-, Marcus said. Mr. Thompson looked serious. "You've been documenting everything, right?" Marcus nodded and showed him his notebook. "Good," Mr. Thompson said. "I think it's time to take the next step. The college has a process for grade appeals. You can ask for another professor to review your work." "Will that help?" Marcus asked. "It might. But first, let's gather more evidence." Mr. Thompson thought for a moment. "Do you know anyone else who answered the questions in a similar way, but got a better grade?" Marcus remembered something. "Tyler in my study group. We practiced together and had similar answers." Asked to see his test, Mr. Thompson suggested. "If he got a better grade for similar work, that's important evidence." The next day, Marcus found Tyler in the cafeteria. "Can I ask you something? What grade did you get on the literature test?" "I got a B+, Tyler said. "Way better than I expected." "Would you mind if I looked at your test? I'm trying to understand how she grades." "Sure," Tyler said. He pulled out his test. "Here." Marcus read Tyler's answers. They were good, but not better than his own. Some parts were very similar because they had studied together. Yet Tyler got a B+, while Marcus got a C-. "Thanks," Marcus said, handing the test back. He took a picture of it first with his phone. "No problem," Tyler said. "Hey, you look upset. Is everything okay?" Marcus took a deep breath. "It will be," he said. "I'm just collecting some information." As he walked to his next class, Marcus felt a new feeling growing inside him. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was determination. Professor Miller might think she could push him out of college, but she didn't know what he had learned in the Marines. Marines never give up, and neither would he. The next day was important for Marcus. Professor Miller had asked everyone to give a short talk about one of the books they had read. Each student would stand in front of the class and speak for 5 minutes. Marcus had prepared carefully. He chose to talk about a book that described war. Since he had been in real wars, he understood the book in a special way. "Today we will hear your presentations," Professor Miller said. "We'll go in alphabetical order by last name." Marcus felt nervous. Johnson started with J, so he would be in the middle. As other students gave their talks, Professor Miller nodded and smiled. She wrote notes on her paper. Finally, it was Marcus's turn. He walked to the front of the room, ignoring the pain in his leg. He noticed Professor Miller was not smiling now. "My presentation is about the Red Badge of Courage," Marcus began. "This book is about a young soldier in the Civil War who is afraid at first, but learns to be brave." As Marcus spoke, he could see some students nodding. They seemed interested in what he was saying, but Professor Miller frowned and wrote many notes. "The author never fought in a war," Marcus continued. "But as someone who has been in combat, I can tell you he got many things right. The fear before battle, the confusion during fighting, the way soldiers depend on each other. Marcus spoke clearly and with feeling. When he finished, many students clapped. Marcus felt good about his presentation. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," Professor Miller said coldly. "While your personal experiences are interesting, this class is about analyzing literature, not telling war stories." Marcus felt his face get hot again. He had not just told war stories. He had connected his experiences to the book, just like she asked them to do. "I did analyze the book," Marcus said calmly. "I showed how the author's words match real experiences." Professor Miller's eyes narrowed. "Please take your seat, Mr. Johnson. We need to move on." As Marcus sat down, Aisha whispered to him, "That was really good. She's being unfair." The next student, Kevin, gave his presentation. It wasn't very good. He seemed nervous and forgot parts of what he wanted to say. But Professor Miller smiled and said, "Excellent analysis, Kevin. You showed deep understanding of the text." Marcus wrote this down in his notebook too. After class, several students came up to Marcus. "Your presentation was the best one," said Lisa. "You made the book seem real." "Thanks," Marcus said. "I tried my best." Later that week, Professor Miller handed back the presentation grades. Marcus got a C. Kevin, whose presentation was not good, got an A-. Marcus added this to his growing file of evidence. He now had his paper with the unfair D- grade, his test with the C- that didn't match his good answers, his presentation grade that didn't match his good work, notes of all the rude comments Professor Miller had made, statements from Aisha and 2 other students saying he was treated unfairly, pictures of Tyler's test showing similar answers got different grades. That afternoon, Marcus went to see Mr. Thompson at the Veteran Center. He showed him all the evidence. Mr. Thompson looked through everything carefully. "This is a strong case, Marcus," he said. "I think you're ready to take the next step." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Filing a formal complaint," Mr. Thompson said. "I'll help you with the paperwork. You'll need to write down everything that happened and attach all this evidence." "Will it make a difference?" Marcus asked. "It might," Mr. Thompson said. "The college takes discrimination complaints seriously, but you should know that Professor Miller has friends in the administration. This won't be easy." Marcus thought about the hard times he had faced in the military, about the friends he had lost, about the pain he still felt in his leg some days. "I'm not doing this just for me," Marcus said firmly. "I'm doing it for the next veteran who takes her class, and the next black student she tries to push out." Mr. Thompson smiled. "That's why I think you'll win, Marcus. You see the bigger picture." As Marcus filled out the complaint forms, he felt strong. Professor Miller had tried to make him feel small and stupid, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. Marcus Johnson didn't give up easily. One week after filing his complaint, Marcus got an email asking him to come to the dean's office. The dean of students, Dr. Rivera, wanted to meet with him about Professor Miller. Marcus dressed in his best clothes that day. He wore a clean button-up shirt and nice pants. He brought his folder of evidence with him. When Marcus entered Dr. Rivera's office, he was surprised to see Professor Miller sitting there. She looked angry. "Please sit down, Mr. Johnson," Dr. Rivera said. She was a serious-looking woman with short gray hair. "Professor Miller has asked to be part of this meeting." Marcus sat down, keeping his back straight like he did in the military. "Thank you for seeing me, Dr. Rivera." "I've read your complaint," Dr. Rivera said. "These are serious claims. You're saying Professor Miller treated you unfairly because you're black and a veteran." "Yes," Marcus said calmly. "I have evidence to show that." Professor Miller cut in. "This is ridiculous. I treat all students the same. Mr. Johnson is just upset because he's not doing well in my class." Dr. Rivera held up her hand. "Professor Miller, please, let's hear Mr. Johnson out." Marcus opened his folder. "I have my graded papers here. You can see my work is good, but my grades are low. I also have similar work from other students who got better grades." He handed the papers to Dr. Rivera. She looked through them carefully. I also have statements from 3 other students, Marcus continued. They say Professor Miller treats me differently. Dr. Rivera read these statements too. Professor Miller's face was red now. Those students are just friends of his, and grading is subjective. As the professor, I decide what's good work. Yes, Dr. Rivera said, but grades should be fair and based on the work, not on who wrote it. Marcus spoke up. I've also written down comments Professor Miller has made about my military service and about how I don't belong in college. He handed Dr. Rivera his notebook. As Dr. Rivera read, her face became more serious. Professor Miller, did you really tell Mr. Johnson that the military trains you to follow orders, not to think? Professor Miller looked flustered. I may have said something like that, but I didn't mean anything bad by it. And did you suggest he go to trade school instead of college? Dr. Rivera asked. I was just trying to help him find his path, Professor Miller said weakly. Dr. Rivera turned back to Marcus. Mr. Johnson, your complaint is very detailed. I need time to look into this more. I'll speak with the other students you mentioned and review your work carefully. What about my class? Marcus asked. I still have to go to her class every day. Dr. Rivera thought for a moment. For now, continue attending, but I'll arrange for another professor to grade your remaining work in that class. Professor Miller stood up suddenly. This is outrageous. You're taking his word over mine. I've been teaching here for 20 years. Please sit down, Karen, Dr. Rivera said firmly. No one has made any final decisions yet, but the evidence Mr. Johnson has presented deserves serious consideration. Marcus stayed calm even though inside he felt both nervous and hopeful. This was the first time someone with power at the school was really listening to him. As the meeting ended, Dr. Rivera shook Marcus's hand. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Johnson. It takes courage to speak up. Outside the office, Professor Miller brushed past Marcus without looking at him. Her face was still red, and she was walking fast. Marcus took a deep breath. The battle wasn't over, but he had made it through the first big test. In the military, Marcus had learned that winning sometimes meant just staying in the fight. As he walked across campus, his phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. How did the meeting go? Marcus typed back. Good, I think. The dean is listening. She's going to investigate. Aisha replied quickly. That's great. We're all with you. Marcus smiled as he put his phone away. When he first came to college, he worried about being older than the other students. Now he had friends who supported him. He wasn't alone in this fight. The next day, Marcus walked into Professor Miller's class feeling strange. Everyone knew about his complaint now. Word had spread fast around the small campus. As Marcus took his seat, he could feel eyes on him. Some students gave him small smiles. Others looked away quickly. Professor Miller was at her desk, not looking up as students came in. When class started, Professor Miller's voice was tight. Today we will discuss the final book on our reading list. Please open to Chapter 1. The class was quieter than usual. Professor Miller didn't look at Marcus once during a whole hour. It was like she was pretending he wasn't there. After class, Tyler caught up with Marcus in the hallway. Hey, Dr. Rivera called me to her office yesterday. She asked about Professor Miller's class. What did you say? Marcus asked. The truth, Tyler said simply. I showed her my test and told her how you always get treated worse than everyone else. Thanks, Marcus said. That means a lot. No problem. Most of us have seen what's happening. It's not right. Later that afternoon, Marcus got an email from Dr. Rivera asking him to come to her office again the next day. He felt nervous but ready. When Marcus arrived at the office, he was surprised to see not just Dr. Rivera, but also an older man he didn't know. Marcus, this is Dr. Peterson, the head of the English department, Dr. Rivera said. He's Professor Miller's boss. Dr. Peterson shook Marcus's hand. He had kind eyes behind thick glasses. It's good to meet you, Mr. Johnson. I wish it were under better circumstances. They all sat down. Dr. Rivera looked serious. We've spoken to several students from your class, and we've reviewed your work. We've also looked at Professor Miller's grading patterns over the past few years. Marcus waited, his heart beating fast. What we found, Dr. Rivera continued, is a pattern. Professor Miller consistently gives lower grades to minority students and veterans. Your case is not the only one, but it's the best documented. Dr. Peterson spoke up. We take this very seriously, Mr. Johnson. Professor Miller has been put on leave while we complete our investigation. Marcus was shocked. She's not teaching anymore. Not right now, Dr. Rivera explained. Another professor will take over your class starting tomorrow. What happens next? Marcus asked. Professor Miller will have a chance to defend herself in a formal hearing. Dr. Peterson said, you may need to speak at that hearing too, if you're willing. Marcus nodded. I'll do whatever is needed. There's something else, Dr. Rivera said. We've decided to regrade all your work from Professor Miller's class. Dr. Peterson will do that himself. Thank you, Marcus said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. As Marcus walked out of the office, his phone rang. It was James from the Veterans Center. I just heard about Professor Miller, James said. Word travels fast around here. Yeah, Marcus said. I didn't expect things to happen so quickly. You know why they're taking it so seriously? James asked. Because you did it right. You gathered evidence. You followed the rules. That's something most students don't know how to do. Marcus smiled. I guess the military taught me something useful after all. When Marcus got to the Veterans Center, he found a small group waiting for him. Mr. Thompson was there, along with several other veteran students. Here's the man of the hour, Mr. Thompson said with a smile. Marcus, what you've done is important. It's going to help a lot of other students. An older veteran named Bill spoke up. I had Professor Miller 3 years ago. I dropped her class because I thought I wasn't smart enough. Maybe the problem wasn't me after all. It wasn't you, Marcus said firmly. And it wasn't me either. As they talked, Marcus felt proud. In the military, he had learned that fighting wasn't just about winning. It was about standing up for what was right, even when it was hard. Sometimes, the most important battles weren't on the battlefield, but in everyday life. Marcus knew the story wasn't over yet. There would be a hearing. Professor Miller might fight back. But for now, he had won an important victory, not just for himself, but for others too. 2 weeks passed quickly. Marcus's literature class felt different with the new teacher, Professor Adams. She was younger than Professor Miller and smiled a lot. She asked questions and really listened to the answers. All students got a chance to speak, not just the ones she liked. One day after class, Professor Adams asked Marcus to stay for a moment. I wanted to let you know that I finished regrading your previous work, she said. Dr. Peterson and I both looked at everything. Marcus waited nervously. Your paper that got a D-. We both gave it an A. Professor Adams smiled. And your test and presentation were also A-level work. You're one of the best students in this class, Marcus. Marcus felt a mix of happiness and anger. He was glad to know he really was a good student. But he was also angry that Professor Miller had tried to make him feel stupid. Thank you for telling me, Marcus said. You should be proud of your work, Professor Adams said. And proud of standing up for yourself. That takes real courage. The next day, Marcus got an official email. The hearing about Professor Miller would be in 3 days. He would need to speak about what happened. Marcus spent hours preparing what he would say. He practiced in front of his friends at the Veterans Center. He wanted to be calm and clear, not angry. On the day of the hearing, Marcus dressed in his best clothes again. He even wore his military service pins on his jacket. They reminded him of what he had been through and how strong he was. The hearing was in a small room with a long table. 3 people sat on one side, Dr. Rivera, Dr. Peterson, and another person Marcus didn't know, Professor Miller sat at one end of the table with a serious-looking man beside her. Marcus guessed this was her lawyer. "Please take a seat, Mr. Johnson," Dr. Rivera said. "This is Ms. Lopes from the Office of Equal Opportunity." Marcus sat down and placed his folder of evidence on the table. "We are here to review the complaint of discrimination filed by Marcus Johnson against Professor Karen Miller," Ms. Lopes began. "Professor Miller has been informed of all charges and evidence. Now we will hear from both parties." Marcus spoke first. He told his story clearly and without anger. He showed his evidence and explained each example of unfair treatment. He talked about how Professor Miller had tried to make him feel like he didn't belong in college. When he finished, Professor Miller's lawyer spoke. "My client has an excellent record of 20 years of teaching. She denies any discrimination. Grading is always subjective, and teachers must be free to grade as they see fit." Then Professor Miller spoke. Her voice was shaking a little. "I have high standards for all my students. If Mr. Johnson felt I was unfair, I'm sorry. But I never meant to discriminate against anyone." Dr. Peterson asked her a hard question. "How do you explain that your minority students and veterans consistently receive lower grades than others, even when their work is similar or better?" Professor Miller looked surprised. I don't believe that's true. "We have reviewed your grading patterns for the past 5 years, Ms. Lopes said. "The data shows a clear pattern." Professor Miller's face turned red. "This is an attack on my professional judgment. I've never been questioned like this before." "Perhaps that's part of the problem," Dr. Rivera said quietly. After 2 hours of questions and answers, the hearing ended. Ms. Lopes thanked everyone for coming. "We will review all evidence and testimony," she said. "We will make our decision within 5 working days." As Marcus left the room, Professor Miller wouldn't look at him. Her lawyer was whispering something to her, but she looked upset. Outside, Aisha, Tyler, and several other students were waiting. "How did it go?" Aisha asked. "I think it went well," Marcus said. "They had evidence I didn't even know about. They've been looking at her grading for 5 years. "That's because of you," Tyler said. "Your complaint made them look deeper." As they walked across campus together, Marcus felt both tired and hopeful. The hardest part was over. He had spoken his truth. Now he just had to wait for the college to do the right thing. 5 days after the hearing, Marcus's phone rang while he was studying in the library. It was Dr. Rivera. "Marcus, we've made our decision. Could you come to my office this afternoon?" "Yes, I'll be there," Marcus said, his heart beating faster. When Marcus arrived at Dr. Rivera's office, Dr. Peterson and Ms. Lopes were there too. Their faces were serious but not unfriendly. "Please sit down," Dr. Rivera said. "We want to tell you the results of our investigation." Marcus sat down, feeling nervous but ready to hear whatever they decided. Ms. Lopes spoke first. "After reviewing all evidence and testimony, we have determined that Professor Miller did discriminate against you and other minority students and veterans." Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "The evidence was very clear," Dr. Peterson added. "Your complaint helped us uncover a pattern that had been going on for years." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Professor Miller has been removed from teaching for the rest of this semester," Dr. Rivera explained. "She will undergo extensive training on bias and fair grading practices, and next year, all her grading will be reviewed regularly." Also, Dr. Peterson said, "All students who were in her classes over the past 2 years will have their work reviewed for possible grade changes." Marcus nodded. This was more than he expected. "Thank you for taking this seriously." "There's one more thing," Dr. Rivera said. "We would like you to help us improve our policies. Your experience shows that our system needs work. Would you be willing to join a new committee on classroom fairness?" Marcus was surprised. "You want my help?" "Yes," Ms. Lopes said. "Your military experience gave you skills that helped you document this problem clearly. Many students face discrimination, but don't know how to prove it or what to do about it." Marcus thought about it. "I would be happy to help. If my experience can help other students, that's important to me. After the meeting, Marcus walked across campus feeling lighter than he had in months. The sun was bright, and for the first time in a long time, his leg didn't hurt much as he walked. He went to the Veterans Center to tell Mr. Thompson the news. "I knew you would win," Mr. Thompson said with a big smile. "You fought the right way, with evidence and facts, not just anger." "I couldn't have done it without your help," Marcus said. "No, you did the hard part," Mr. Thompson insisted. "And now you're going to help make this college better for everyone." That evening, Marcus met his friends at the campus coffee shop to celebrate. Aisha, Tyler, and several other students from his class were there. Even some veterans he didn't know well came to congratulate him. To Marcus, Aisha said, raising her coffee cup, "Who showed us all how to stand up for what's right?" Everyone cheered. Marcus felt his face get warm, but this time it was from happiness, not anger. As they celebrated, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. It was from a number he didn't know. "This is Bill, the veteran who had Miller's class 3 years ago. Just heard the news. Thank you for doing what I couldn't do. You've made a difference for all of us." 2 weeks later, Marcus walked into his literature class with Professor Adams. At the end of class, she handed back their latest papers. Marcus had worked hard on his, writing about courage in everyday life. At the top of his paper was a big letter A and a note that said, "Excellent analysis. Your personal perspective adds depth to your writing." Marcus smiled as he put the paper in his folder. Professor Miller had tried to make him feel that he didn't belong in college because he was black and a veteran. She had tried to make him doubt himself. But Marcus knew the truth now. He did belong here. His military experience wasn't a weakness, but a strength. It had taught him discipline, determination, and how to fight the right way. As he walked to his next class, several students greeted him by name. Some professors who had heard his story nodded respectfully. Marcus Johnson wasn't just the black veteran student anymore. He was a valued member of the college community who had made it better for everyone. And that, Marcus thought, was the greatest victory of all.